Parker, Senior Editor of Candy Industry Magazine. Today we are on site at Sanders in Clinton Township talking with Vic Mehren, the CEO. Thanks for being here with us.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you for coming today.
And can you tell us a little bit about Second Nature Brands, the parent company, and how it got its start?
Yeah, of course. So Second Nature Brands is it's a big snacking company, and we're a collection of different snacking and treating brands across a couple different segments in what we call macro snacking. And it got its start really, probably best describe it with the Cars Nuts business. So that was probably our legacy business. Cars Nuts is today the largest manufacturer of branded trail mixes. We have the Cars brand, and we also have a Second Nature brand as well. And that business was founded really in the early 1900s by a woman named Sue Carr, who was the entrepreneur that started making roasting nuts in her house and selling them outside of baseball games at Tiger Stadium here in Detroit. And then fast forward, then eventually the Nicolay family bought the business, and Bud Nicolay initially, and then most recently his son Nick Nicolay grew the business to what it really is today over the course of about 25 years or so. And that was the legacy business, and I came in and took over from Nick, and they had recently also just acquired the other brand in our portfolio called Sanders. And Sanders is also coincidentally a Detroit-born brand, actually at the later part of the 1800s by Fred Sanders, when he opened up his first shop in downtown Detroit. And since then, Sanders has been a heritage brand of different types of confectionery and ice cream and cake products in Detroit for years. Today, it's really famous for the sea salt caramels and the caramel that it makes, right? We could talk more about that a little bit later. But that's really the second brand of Second Nature Brands. And that's about that time we decided, well, let's name ourselves something that's more reflective of a bigger snacking company, which is what we aspired to be, and that's when we chose the name Second Nature Brands. That was probably about 2 or 3 years ago. And then we most recently bought a third brand into our portfolio, which is Brownie Brittle. So Brownie Brittle is a baked product. We're proud to have Brownie Brittle in the Second Nature Brands portfolio today.
When did Second Nature Brand acquire Sanders? You said a few years ago?
Yeah, it was about 2018, I think, acquired Sanders. And then just this past year acquired Brownie Brittle.
Okay. And then Sanders is obviously a well-known Detroit staple. There's like there's bumpy cake and all caramels and all sorts of confections. But how do you work on expanding like past the chain?
Yeah, we're really proud of the heritage and the roots we have with all of our brands, and Sanders here and Cars here in Detroit. But our strategic plan is to drive these great, more locally known brands nationally. So what we try to look for are brands, and Brownie Brittle is a great example of that. It has decent, distribution in some parts of the country, but a lot of, what we call white space or upside for further distribution. And we see if they're doing pretty well where they're at, well, we think we can do a good job of extending them, building the brands larger and extending them into other parts of the country. So it's really, we have more of a national distribution expansion strategy in Second Nature Brands.
That makes sense. And then for Sanders, what are your most popular products? What kind of products do you make? Obviously the caramels and the cakes, things like that. And the dessert toppings now too?
Yeah, so we've for years been known for our classic bumpy cake, which is a Detroit icon. We also have, as you mentioned, dessert toppings. But really what Sanders does and is famous for today more nationally is sea salt caramels. At our core, Sanders is a caramel maker. We believe that everyone deserves great caramel. And so we do it a little differently than most larger confectionery players in the country, whereas we have huge kettles, so we batch make them, single batch at a time, in kettles where we cook them for a long time to create a very unique caramel experience. That's really what we're kind of known for, is that caramel. So sea salt caramel is by far our best selling item. You maybe have seen it in the stores.
Yep, I've definitely seen it at Costco, even large tubs at Costco.
Yep.
You said like there's smaller tubs rolling out too, smaller packages.
That's exactly right. I think we're in a number of different pack types. but the one that seems to the consumers love the best is that larger tub you mentioned. For example, larger ones at Costco.
Yep.
And then we have certain pack dates even for smaller formats like convenience stores as well. So we think, again, everyone deserves great caramel, so we're extending it as many places as possible.
And you make everything on site as
We
well,
do,
right?
yeah. We love, we're primarily self-manufacturers. We love our factories, and we love the ability to make our own things by our great employees that have been making this stuff for years and many times decades, putting the right level of quality and controls into making multiple products.
Yep. And then I saw at Sweets and Snacks this year you expanded into the dairy-free category, and you also have a sugar-free caramel coming up too.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So maybe. One thing I mentioned is, I mentioned kind of all the products that we have in our portfolio, all that originally came from entrepreneurs who are pioneering something new, is to continue to be pioneers, which today really means creating new innovation. And the ones you mentioned is all part of our approach of, everyone deserves great caramel. Well, there's some people who, just don't have dairy in their diet. And so for them, we now have a dairy-free sea salt caramel. And it's doing quite well, and that offers, the wonderful Sanders sea salt caramel experience to those consumers. And there's some consumers that, aren't going to include as much sugar in their diet. And of course, traditional caramel, of course, has sugar in it, but now we have a no sugar added version with 1 gram of sugar, Sanders sea salt caramel. And then there's, for consumers that are really keeping an eye on calories, we also have a Sanders Thin product as well, which is a little less calories per serving and provides a little bit different kind of chocolate to caramel ratios experience. So we try and provide different types of innovations to meet different consumer needs.
Right, that's great. It's like you said, not everyone can have dairy or sugar.
Exactly.
Do you know when the Thins came out? Is that this year?
Thins, I think about it, we first started innovating with it maybe about a year and a half ago, I think.
Okay.
And then once we test it and see, we'll try it with a customer, see how it works, get some consumer feedback on it, maybe retool a little bit and bring it back out more broadly. And we're in that phase right now. We're extending Thins out a little bit broadly, but I think we originally started doing it like a year and a half ago.
Okay, yep. And then do you have any new products coming out either this year or upcoming for next year?
Yeah, we sure do. So I'll start with Sanders. We've just tested with one of our closest customers a bourbon sea salt caramel. I think we launched that around Father's Day, actually.
Yeah.
And that did really well. So we'll be bringing that to the market. And then for the holidays, we have a caramel product by Sanders that's a peppermint, which is perfect for the holidays. So it's got some peppermint flavoring in it, but it also has, instead of sea salt on top, it has crushed candy canes that goes on top. So that did well when we tested as well. We'll continue to extend that as well. And then on the trail mix side, we've just launched under our Second Nature brand a whole bunch of global mixes.
Okay.
So we have a Mediterranean mix, a Thai mix, a Szechuan mix. So we've got a number of different products that we're launching on that site as well. And then maybe the most fun one is Brownie Brittle. We just launched a Brownie Brittle with little M&Ms in it. So kind of a licensing program we did with M&Ms and Brownie Brittle. So that's going to market right now.
I think we just wrote about both of those actually.
Did you really? Yeah,
For
thank
snack
you.
food wholesale bakery.
Good, thank you.
I remember the trail mixes have sort of like ethnic flavors.
Exactly.
And different types
Yeah,
of
we've really
flavors.
taken cues from, which is a trend right now, taking cues from kind of global culinary
Global
flavors.
flavors. Yep.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you for being here today, and thanks for letting us see Sanders.
You bet, Liz. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks.